January 2nd going into January 3rd, we saw something take place in the magnetosphere that I have never, ever seen happen before. A shockwave blast came through and, like I said, did things I've never witnessed in all my years of watching all these different graphs, etc. What then happened over the month of January, with the exception of a few individual days, that same event played out every single night between midnight and 1 a.m. for almost the entire month of January. Every single day we have seen unbelievable geomagnetic unrest. We have seen massive geomagnetic waves coming through, the magnetopods being just bent and contorted and all over the place. 1 and 2, you see a few of these little things, that's normal. Seeing it day after day after day, this is not normal.
The scientists at LivePet are hard at work solving our cancer epidemic. They have the most promising cancer trials going on now with pet clinics around the country that I have ever seen. You can see the promising cancer research and trials going on some of the past shows that I've done. The links are below. While working with C60 and other ingredients, these talented scientists developed a hair growth serum that really works. They sat on it for years. After all, cancer is their focus. But they now realize how much the profits from this product could really help their cancer research. So the C360 hair growth product was launched. C360 hair growth is specifically designed to revive your hair growth by targeting hair follicles and restarting your hair growth cycle. C60, the active ingredient in C360 hair growth, reactivates hair follicles that have stalled due to hereditary hair loss, physical conditions, or environmental factors that may affect follicle production. You will begin to see visible results using C360 hair growth within 3 to 6 weeks. Buy today knowing that your future hair growth will help fund very promising cancer research. See more at the link below.
Welcome to Business Game Changers. I'm Sarah Westall. This show I have Dani Arnold-McKenny. She is amazing. She's brilliant, and she doesn't get herself stuck in a narrative like so many other people do. She's a scientist-minded person who she'll learn about a fact over here that just doesn't fit the narrative. So she'll be like, okay, this doesn't work. I need to come up with different theories. And she just keeps a really open mind. I love that. That's really what my show is about, is looking at all different angles of things. And we are going to talk about a very serious subject, though. The fact that the geomagnetic sphere of the Earth is being bombarded by something going on, and she shows a video clip of it and what that means. We're thinking that the theory is that the pole shifts are changing, and what that means to what's going to happen to Earth. And this is really, it's really very fascinating but kind of scary discussion. And maybe it's tied into the fact that there's been so many extreme weather things going on. I don't know, but I'm throwing that out there. She throws that out there. And then how does it affect mammals and human beings? And what are doctors saying? Because they're seeing record numbers of things going on. It's very interesting. It's a 2-part show because she just keeps going on and on about all these fascinating things. And I'm like, okay, we are going to keep going on this. So don't tune this out. Keep watching. It's very interesting. And she, for my Patreon, she provides some, an extra thing of a video that she posted on her channel, which is not up on YouTube anymore. So she has something there with some extra research. She talks about C60 and then also some research on what she's finding with the electrical magnetic stuff that's going on, and tying it back to her video. I really highly recommend that you tune into her shows, and I have her information here as well, because she's going to be covering this on a regular basis as to what's going on, because she's never seen this before, and she's been covering this for years. So let's get into my interview now with Dani Arnold-McKenny. Dani, thank you so much for rejoining the program.
It's awesome to be back, and I was literally just laughing with a friend of mine saying we did the last one. Was it December 26th, I think, the last time I was on? And I was like, if
December
we
time,
just
yeah.
waited one more week is when all hell broke loose geomagnetically. And I was like, we would have had a really exciting show then, but it's okay. We're going to do it now. We're going to do the review.
Well, yeah, and I want to hear what's been going on because people are having crazy. This is the heaviest snow we've ever had in February in the Twin Cities. We're supposed to get another 11 inches or so. And then we've had the coldest spells too. So all of a sudden, just bam, and it happened pretty close to, after this activity. I have no idea if it's related, but it's kind of interesting to dig into. And you have so much information that you've been researching. I want you to start talking about what you have been seeing going on with the Earth.
Okay. All insanity has broken out. Let's just start right there. Everything that you can categorize as insanity is basically playing out at the moment. I've been laughing and kind of not laughing all month about this. I'm going to backtrack and say, we saw all kinds of things in the last time I talked to you on the show. We talked about the geomagnetic stuff that was going on, a lot of the electric universe theory and how that relates to our planet, etc. And then January 2nd rolled around, 2019, and here I am, as usual, watching all the magnetosphere, the magnetopause, watching all of these various solar, which we'll get into, related events playing out in our magnetic fields on the planet. And just after midnight, January 2nd going into January 3rd, we saw something take place in the magnetosphere that I have never, ever seen happen before. A shockwave blast came through and, like I said, did things I've never witnessed in all my years of watching all these different graphs, etc.
And we can play that here, can't we? We'll just play a little clip here.
I thought I'd give you a little run into it.
Okay.
But yeah, I kind of took off little excerpts. I put together like a little 5-minute clip to show you just the, let's call it the highlights of the insanity. Because people are visual. People, you kind of have to see how crazy this is.
And maybe you can help us understand what that means or what it could mean to the Earth. Like, why is this such a big deal?
That's just it. The more I research, the deeper I go, the more we realize that we just don't have answers. Now, we can hypothesize, and there's a lot of theories going out right now. There's a lot of hypotheses about exactly what's playing out. And of course, the biggest one is that we are in the midst of or just about to have a magnetic pole shift, where the poles flip. And there's a lot of evidence to support that. What it comes down to is basically, it's, as I keep saying, we have to be our own researchers. And because if you try to rely on NASA, NOAA, all that gang, guess what? We get very little information that's real from them.
Well, they won't share. Everything is national security and top secret, and we're a bunch of losers, and they don't want to share it with us because we either can't handle it or it's national security for their own eyes only. For everything is secret.
But it goes even beyond that. And you and I talked about this, how everything is so scattered and they have so much security around every aspect of it. These agencies don't talk to each other, and even within the agencies, they're not talking to each other.
They've dumbed themselves down by doing that.
They've dumbed themselves down. And when you have, for example, university level graduates, and it's fantastic, these guys are super, super smart, but they're coming out of universities that are propagating theories that are bullshit. Let's call it what it is. That have been corrupted, that some of them have not been updated in 150 years. So when you have this kind of stuff coming out, we don't know, as I keep saying, we have no idea what measuring sticks they're using.
Have you ordered a genetic test but just not sure what to do with the information? Are you frustrated that your doctor doesn't have time to talk it through with you? Are you ready to take your health to the next level but just looking for a new level of responsible guidance? My name's James Maskell, and I'm the founder of The Evolution of Medicine. And over the last 4 years, we've been building communities of doctors to ready themselves for this new age of precision medicine through our worldwide network of functional medicine meetup groups. Functional medicine is the new operating system for precision medicine that's not only personalized, but also participatory. And that's why we've gathered 30 of the leading minds in genetics and functional medicine to bring this cutting-edge, important information to you at no cost. This event continues our mission statement of helping mankind evolve beyond chronic disease using not only the cutting-edge clinical ideas, but technology to get us there. If you register here today, we're going to send you 3 priceless interviews and a number of other resources to help you reach and maintain health at the lowest possible cost. Thanks for being part of our community, and we'll see you on the summit.
You know what's wrong with the theories coming out of universities is that the people who are teaching it don't really understand it. They're just repeating what they've learned. And until you fundamentally understand what you're teaching, you don't know if you're even teaching the right stuff. They're just repeating.
They've been knocked down. Exactly. This is a generational thing. This isn't just the CIA walked in like, say, 1990 and said, hey, we're just going to corrupt everything. This is now a generational thing. We're looking back at stuff that from the 40s, the 50s, that was hidden, stomped down, and put under wraps. So that science has never made it into the university level. Those who have access to understand it are only, the very, very few, way, way, way up there within these agencies. And they're certainly not talking.
Well, or if they understand it, they look like whack jobs, and because nobody else understands it, and that's not what they've been repeating, and they don't understand what this person is saying. They don't even understand what they're teaching. They're just repeating it, and they think they kind of do. And then so this whack job that's actually trying to teach them a different paradigm, because they don't understand it in the first place. And the ones who truly understand it aren't at a lot of these places.
No, and this is it. A lot of them are very independent. There's some brilliant minds out there that we have to go find, and we have to talk to them, and we have to pull the information from them, because the information is out there, but it's a matter of their papers don't get published, or if they get published, they get no notice. They don't get any recognition for the work that they're putting out. It's continuously smothered. So it makes, for example, you have to reinvent language. So the Google machine, as we know, is broken. The Google algorithms for searching for anything are completely broken now. So when you go looking for very specific information, and you can type in terms like geophysical effects of cosmic rays and solar radiation, and you will get 25 pages of mainstream stupidity about wear your suntan lotion. Because that's what comes up. Literally, that's what comes up. And so you end up having to go in and re-educate. So, for example, in the studies, and we'll get into this a little bit, about the physical effects of this stuff, what we're witnessing happening around, the physical effects on the body, is I had all of a sudden discovered there's this word called heliobiology, which is an entire own little tiny piece of science off to the side. So then when you actually punch that word into your search parameters, you start to find real information, actual studies that have to do with what we're trying to find out. And we have to re-educate ourselves continuously on the words that we use, because the language no longer works in search algorithms unless you can find a really specific phrase or word that triggers.
That's a really good point. All this advanced science stuff will really have to use a little bit different language, because otherwise we're going to be stuck in the minutia of BS. And so you want to get to the real brilliant, cutting edge knowledge, and you can't get there unless you use the different words. That's a really good point.
It is, and we have to continuously. First of all, I live with a thesaurus where you're continuously going, okay, if I rephrase this sentence slightly differently, can I get a different search pattern up? But yeah, like crawling through scientific papers to pick out terms that are, extreme abstract, like, words that we just don't know, and then using those to search in the hopes of triggering information to become available.
And they have to use it as a keyword, or it has to be something so that's hard too.
Yep. It's finding information now, and people often like to say, with Google, Google's burying the truth and they're just doing this on purpose to make it so much more difficult. Yes, but unfortunately, it's across the board. It doesn't matter what you search for on Google anymore. It honestly doesn't matter. You can be searching for me, my company, I can be searching for glass bottles suppliers, and you get nothing but crap.
You can't get the good manufacturers. Go directly to the manufacturer that you can buy at a great price.
Whoever paid the most for advertising, you get whoever paid.
Yes, exactly. So are other search engines better, or are they all crap?
Do you know what? Here's my big announcement, because I have done months of research over and over on this. I love DuckDuckGo because, of course, it's a secure. They don't save your information, your search history, et cetera, et cetera. Ecosia is great. They plant trees according to how many search hits you do, et cetera. They all use the Google algorithms.
They do?
They all use the Google algorithms. All of them now. I have not, and I'm putting it out here to Sarah, all your listeners.
How do you know that?
Anyone can find, because you have to go into their pages and go searching through their technical info till you'd figure it out. Now, the other thing that is also, you can also tell us, because when you Google search, say on Bing, Yahoo, DuckDuckGo, Google, and the first 40 hits that come up are all the same on all of them across the board.
That's too bad.
And you've got to dig, and you've got to really, really dig. And then you find out, no, they're all using the same search patterns. So we need someone to invent a new search engine that goes away from all of this paid advertising, this SEO stuff, that literally just does a word search. Give us the stuff so we can find the stuff that we want. It's insane.
Yeah, it's like the raw data for scientists or anybody who really wants to do research.
I spend inordinate amounts of time just trying to hit upon a pathway to find information. And then, of course, so much of that information is buried anyways. So you have to dig that much harder to get to it.
Well, let's talk about your video that you made, because I think that is it's really interesting, and I'd like to look at it because it's huge. And then what scientists are saying maybe is happening and how that's impacting us as human beings. But first, if you can walk through all that, that would be really helpful.
So to give a little rundown before we watch the video, like I said, the video is 5 minutes long, and it's just, I've taken segments out of various news reports that I've done in the last month. So midnight, January 2nd into January 3rd is when the first event happened. And I'm calling it an event because, like I said, I have never witnessed anything like this before. What then happened over the month of January, with the exception of a few individual days, that same event played out every single night between midnight and 1 a.m. for almost the entire month of January.
You're kidding me.
No. And I got to the point where I was like, what is this? And sometimes you'd have a ripple effect where you'd have this blast come in around midnight, and then you'd have another one at 2 a.m. or 3 a.m. and you'd see another one come in. Occasionally, there was a couple of days where we'd have one at around 8 o'clock in the morning.
But always at the same time? Because
midnight.
It doesn't seem natural when you're seeing that.
Well, we'll discuss theories on this. But even in between those, every single day we have seen unbelievable geomagnetic unrest. We have seen massive geomagnetic waves coming through, the magnetopause being just bent and contorted and all over the place. 1 and 2, you see a few of these little things, that's normal. Seeing it day after day after day, this is not normal, especially when you consider the information that's coming from the big guys. So we're looking at, there was 1 C-class solar flare. C-class is so low that at any other time, I would have even been like, it's a burp. It's not even worth taking note of. We had a couple of geomagnetic storms, but they were all real small ones. They were like KP, they reached G1. At the maximum level that we reached was a G1. Okay, this is what we would classify as so minor that a year ago, I wouldn't have even taken, I would have said to people, it's nothing. It's like a burp coming from the sun. That's it. We also saw many, as a matter of fact, I think I did a count, and it was on January 20, no, sorry, it was February 3rd I did the count. And from January 1st to February 3rd, we had 16 days that had times within the day where the geomagnetics reached a KP0, which is none. Flatline.
What should it be normally?
It should, well, normal, define normal. We usually see it between a 2 and a 3, and it just fluctuates in the green area, 2, 3, around there. A KP0, and this is it was a massive mind blow for me, is when I started trying to investigate the physical effects of the geomagnetics. And that's because we always think of it as big storms. We think, oh, if it's a KP8, it's a huge storm, it's going to affect us. And I've talked about things like road rage and the emotional effects and the physical effects like heart attacks, etc. What I didn't realize is that there are just as many of those effects happen on a KP0 day when there's zero geomagnetic.
Are we seeing more of those effects? I mean, are we seeing more heart attacks? Are we seeing that?
I've had, let's say, at least 15 or 20 people I know who've been in the hospital in the last month. And they're going in for various things, like one was a broken leg, one was, all these different things. But you talk to the medical staff, and they've all said the same thing. They have been inundated. Psychiatric, people checking themselves into psych wards because they're afraid that they're losing their mind. There's been a huge amount of suicides and attempted suicides. I know of at least 6 or 7 people within my group, my private group, who someone in their family has had a heart attack in the last month. These are major. Now, of course, are we ever going to get these numbers? Well, we might, 2021, you might release numbers from 2018. But you talk to the doctors, and like I've had various people who I know who've talked to the doctors, and the doctors have been like, we have no idea what's going on. We have so many people come, psychotic events.
Well, that makes sense. I had a scientist that talked about the magnetic shifts and things, and how they did studies on rats, and how they get their nests are messy and they have more kids versus a neat nest with less kids. I mean, their whole mindset changes. And so it's interesting because there has to be an effect on us and all mammals. But can you show us this video? I am like ready to die to see this video now.
Bear with me.
Let's turn this on because then you can tell us, because now you got us all built up to this thing being freaking off the charts. So I got to see this.
Computer sound on too, because there's a little bit of narration going. Start sharing. I'm going to take you through this frame by frame. You can watch the wave come in. The entire magnetosphere is literally blasted back, and then watch the reaction. I have never, ever seen anything like that before. Never, no matter how big a geomagnetic storm we've been under, I have never seen anything like this. We're coming up on midnight again.
And has that been every single night
Almost.
at midnight?
And again. Big, huge hits just after midnight. Massive ones again. Coming up into midnight, it expands again. At just before 1, we have the next massive big blow. And you can see again, it remains unstable straight through till past 3 o'clock in the morning. Going to the midnight hour, here we go, hitting midnight. Again, another massive, massive blast. 1. Okay? It is 1:30 in the morning before that calms down, and immediately another massive hit at 2 comes through. Again, the unrest just keeps continuing. And there's our midnight blast, it seems. And then it starts again at 2200 at 10. Now watch this as we go into midnight again. Just after midnight, pow. 1 pulls back and calms down, and then at just after 2, again. Now I'm going to take a moment here just to explain something, because I've got an image up so I can help show people. When you look at these, you have 3 basic lines that you're looking at, these lines that you're seeing traced out. So the red lines that you see at the front and here are the Earth's geomagnetic closed field lines. Those are the major, they really are the telling ones that are showing us what is coming through Earth's geomagnetic field. Now you have the black lines that come out of the north and down out of the south. Those are called the polar caps. And then you have these blue lines that run normally, they run pretty much straight across. And when you have geomagnetic storms, they'll get a little bit warped, etc. Those are the interplanetary magnetic lines. So as we go through this video a little bit more, you're going to see some of the things I talk about is how you'll see these lines have been so crunched. I've seen things in the last month I've never seen before. I'll just hit play again. Coming up on midnight. And away we go. And again, look at how long this lasts. We're now at 1:30 in the morning before it starts to ease down again. And then there's a second shock wave comes through between 2 and 3 in the morning. And then it kind of just continues all the way through. And I want you to... The 17th was an interesting day. It literally stayed like this all day on the 17th of January. See, again, we're looking at the snapping of all the lines. You can see massive hits coming in. The hit comes in here, coming in from the sun side. And then as we go through, watch, you see it bend back, the bow shock, and then you get a rippling here. You can see it's actually bending back down here. Now, this is what I'm going to show you. This is a really important one, and one of the things that we saw this month. These are things that we do see them occasionally, but what we experienced this month, I've never seen before. Now, if you look at the red line, so first of all, we have what I was saying, compression, which is you can see this red here. This is called the bow shock. These planetary magnetic lines here, the red here, are being pressed. You can actually see them being pressed and warped out of shape. What we saw a lot of here, if you notice, the red lines, they're not coming directly out. They're coming out and being pushed upwards. Okay? If we look at this, there is one black northern pole line. All the rest of them have snapped. You can see the South Pole lines are being pushed all the way up to the north. And this is the kind of distortion that we continuously saw all the way through the month of January. And we're still seeing now. This is still going on now. So I'm going to hit play again just for the last couple of moments. And you again, look at the direction we're seeing. All the lines, okay, so the black ones are the polar cap lines. Look at them. You can see they're directly being pushed upwards. This can't be simply solar wind speeds. And we're coming up on 2200. We have a pretty good hit here. And then we're coming up on the midnight hour. And again, massive, massive hit. This goes on. We're already at 1 a.m. in the morning. And it continues. On the 18th, it calms a bit, pulls back in, and then we have the next blast come through. Coming at 2300. You can see the hits just keep coming much smaller. Now at midnight, we don't have the same usual mess that we usually have. But you watch the hit again as we get to 2 a.m. Another big one at 2 a.m. Huge, in fact. And again, you look on the 28th, things calm down. Things actually quite radically calm down, because between about the 24th to the 27th, it was insane. It was nonstop. The magnetosphere was just taking hit after hit after hit continuously. 27th, things kind of calmed down. You kind of went, okay, so maybe it was that big coronal hole. It's calming down. Everything should go back to normal. Yeah, no, not quite so much. And you're going to see this happen. Over the last week, we saw this a lot, where literally we would see the poles completely disconnect in the magnetosphere. So I'm going to show you this. And you can see, look at the push. Everything is being pushed extremely high, way, way, way high up in this direction. And there's 1 o'clock in the morning, not as big as some of the ones that we've seen. But again, we're still seeing that compression there.
Wow. So now, in looking, your opinion and talking to other scientists, because I know you're talking to people, what are the theories on what the heck is going on?
Okay, so there's several of them out there. For me, I always try to balance everything. I try to look at the balance point and say, okay, for example, I'm going to say the dreaded N word, Nibiru, right? And of course, it's been thrown around. It's been used within, a lot of the truther communities and alternative science. Nibiru is a big one. And I've never really wanted to get into that. I've obviously done a lot of research on that planet, if you will, or the planet that may or may not exist around us. But because of all the hype and because of it gets so confuddled into a realm of storytelling, really, I've never really used that as a base marker point. But as I said, when we started seeing these blasts coming in and we start seeing the magnetosphere being pushed, and you can't deny it. If the Earth is here and the sun is here, and the winds from the sun, the solar wind stream, or the CMEs are coming from the sun, they should hit the Earth, go around the magnetosphere, and should go straight out. If we're seeing it going up like this, and it's occasionally sometimes going down, but mostly being pushed up, and you're seeing what we saw when we see like the entire polar cap lines disconnecting, well, everything is being pushed up. That says to me, logically, that it's not just the Earth and the sun. There has to be a third variable. There has to be a third variable that is causing the bending motion, the push, if you will. So that is one of the variables. This is something we've talked about a lot, and we've been going through and said, you can't take it off the table. We can't take it off the table as much as I'd like to. We can't take it off the table because physical evidence that we see says that there must be another variable in the equation that we don't know what that variable is.
Well, do you think that the time factor is a factor of the rotation?
And
possibly.
That was the other reason. If you have a timing like we saw, where almost every day, with the exception of January 5th and January 24th, every night at between midnight and 1 a.m., we saw these massive blasts. That says to me that we're talking about something that is in orbit, that at that 24-hour period, every time that 24-hour period, there was something causing, that comes into alignment that causes that blast to take place. It's just hypothesis, but it's one of the pieces I have to put on the table, which is why I've been looking at, all the various things on Nibiru, et cetera, et cetera.
Have you been reaching out to planetary scientists and anybody else that are also seeing the same things that you're seeing, and you all chatting about it and trying to figure things out?
Yes and no. I am discovering that even within the alternative science movements, how do I say this very politically correctly? People tend to be very tied to their own theory. And they're not.
Yeah, they do.
And
I've noticed that everywhere. And then everything has to be crammed into their paradigm.
It has to be crammed into, and as soon as you try and bring up a piece that doesn't fit within the paradigm, or obviously shines a question onto that, then it's like, well, that's just bullshit, or it's something. It's been difficult. What I have done is I've basically been out there watching continuously. Like I'm hundreds of hours worth of videos that I've watched. And I've reached out to several different people. Now, the one, like I said, everyone has their own theories on this. So the magnetic pole flip is one of the ones that we have to look at. And this goes into not just what we're seeing in our magnetosphere. This goes into now weather patterns. This goes into the big announcements that just came out from NASA, et cetera, that the magnetic North Pole is wandering off and is super speeding across the Arctic. Now, I put out an article. I have a good friend of mine who's Russian, who watches the Russian science stuff for me. Because, of course, if you can't search in a language, you don't get to pull up any of the information from those countries, right? And he threw me an article when all the news was coming out at the beginning of January saying, oh, the world magnetic map has to be updated 2 years early because it's completely out of kilter, because magnetic north has moved so much that nothing works, etc. There was an article from scientists out of Russia that said all this information and said, yeah, that's because the magnetic North Pole is in Siberia. It's already there. According to the Russian scientists, they're like, yeah, it's already here. It's like right over there. And then we have little incidental pieces that come in, like, oh, for example, in Canada, me being Canadian, oh, all the polar bears are disappearing. It's been like this big thing about they're trying to use it for the global warming and the climate change. Everyone feel bad. The polar bears in Canada are all disappearing. That's because they've all gone to Siberia.
Well, so basically, is our Earth tilting, which is causing the poles to shift, and the weather could be all changing because of that, and that's because of a gravity pull from maybe another object in our solar system.
There's so many pieces to put on the table. So we had the polar vortex split. Now, for the polar vortex to split, it's not uncommon. For the polar vortex to split the way it did this year, just after we spoke, you and I, in December 26th, we got notice from several of the alternative agencies that they were seeing the polar vortex split into 4 and 5. Now, that's rare. And to start coming down, to start falling south, if you will, much earlier than they anticipated. Then it seemed to split again. And we had these massive waves of storms, like the snow in Europe was insane in January, an unheard of amounts of snow. In Greece, in the Alps, I have pictures from friends of mine who live in Switzerland and up in the Alps, and they're like showing the snow is as deep as their house. Literally.
Well, right now we have the most snow we've ever had in February. So it didn't hit us until February, but we had super mild January, and then bam, historic cold spells, and the most snow we've ever had.
And this is it. We've had across the planet the most insane weather we have ever seen in the month of January. Crazy. We're talking floods all over the world, and not little floods. We're talking like build a damn ark type floods all over the world. Massive mudslides. We're talking hailstorms that have got hail that are coming down that are the size of softballs at the very least, and the size of melons in some case. Again, all over the world. Saudi Arabia, which is a desert, not only did it flood twice between December and January, they had 2 hailstorms that they had a hail flood, like snow and hail flooding through the desert. One of the best websites, I will give you the web address to put in there. These guys do a brilliant job of monitoring globally weather and geological events. And it's called The Watchers. I will have to send you the link. I'll have to send you the website. If you go back and review the news that they've put out for the last 6 weeks, the amount of volcanoes, the amount of earthquakes, mudslides, floods, hailstorms, torrential storms, hurricanes, wildfires, the heat waves in Australia, Tasmania. Tasmania not only had a heat wave that was beyond their charts, they had forest fires everywhere. The joke was, my Australian friends, the joke is Tasmania's on fire.
Well, and what we know is it's not climate change because of carbon. It's this, we think it's what's hitting the magnetosphere. It's not, this is massive.
There is a guy who does some very interesting stuff, and his name, he's out of England, and his website on YouTube is Maverick Star, and he is building magnetometers, and he's sending them all over the world. And he has been a very quiet voice of someone who's been continuously talking that the magnetic North Pole is not where they're telling us it is. He's got his own equipment to prove it. And he's been talking about these events. And he did a really excellent video about, it's about 4 weeks ago. And one of the things he brings up is a lot of these guys who talk about magnetic pole shift always talk about the quintessential 40 degrees. When the pole shifts and we get to 40 degrees, the whole thing flips. And what Maverick Star did is he actually showed it. Like, he got a thing of magnets, put them down, and he explained to people what happens when the magnets shift by 40 degrees. And he shows with the compass. And the moment the compass, the magnetic north, shifts by 40 degrees, the whole compass goes flip instantly. And that's magnetics. That's magnetic theory. You can take a compass and get some magnets and play, and you can prove this to yourself. He's of the opinion that we are at around 30 degrees already, if I'm not mistaken.
What happens when the magnetic poles shift?
Therein lies the big question, because there's a lot of people talking about it. You get into stuff like, basically, you get into prophecy. You get into the ancient stories, what we like to call nowadays mythology, the Hopi prophecies. We talk about the Aborigines down in Australia talk about it, the Mayans, et cetera, et cetera.